It was finally time. The mother duck had been preparing her ducklings for this moment for weeks. Today they would leave the nest for the first time and venture out into the big pond. She watched them waddle and flop to their little feet, flapping their wings with enthusiasm. "You are so cute," she said, smiling. "But now is not the time to be playing. You must be serious if you wish to survive out there." As soon as they reached the water, the current began to pull them away from the bank. "Stay together," the mother duck called, paddling furiously against the current to keep them from drifting too far. The little ones huddled close, their yellow heads bobbing above the water. This was harder than it looked. When they finally reached the other side, the mother duck let out a breath. She didn't realize she'd been holding just a little further and they'd be out of the current's reach. But then one of the ducklings, the biggest and boldest of the bunch, veered off course and started swimming towards the center of the pond. "No, no, no," the mother cried, rushing after him. She couldn't believe how reckless he was being. He was a goner if she didn't get to him in time. As she reached him, she grabbed his collar and pulled him back to the safety of the bank. "You scared me," she whispered, more relieved than angry. "Don't ever wander off like that again. Do you hear me?" He nodded, looking down at his webbed feet. He knew he'd been lucky. The mother duck led them to a spot under a willow tree where she knew there was a small ledge just below the surface. It was the perfect place for them to rest and catch their breath. The water was still a bit choppy, but they were out of the current now, and the worst was over. As they rested, the ducklings looked around in wonder at the world that lay beyond the nest. It was so much bigger than they'd imagined. There was a picnic table with a checkered cloth on it and a garden hose coiled up beside it. They had no idea what these things were, but they looked intriguing nonetheless. The mother duck watched them with amusement. She knew they were curious, but she also knew that the world could be a dangerous place for ducklings. She hoped they'd learned their lesson about staying close, but she wasn't so sure. As they made their way back to the nest, the mother duck kept a sharp eye out for any signs of danger. She knew that even though they were only little ducklings, they were strong and fast enough to get into trouble. And sure enough, just as they reached the edge of the willow tree, one of them slipped and fell into the water. The mother duck was on him in a flash, her heart pounding. She couldn't bear to see any one of her ducklings come to harm. But as she pulled him out of the water, she saw that he was laughing. "Oh, you scared me," she said, shaking her head with a smile. "I thought I'd lost you." He giggled. "I just wanted to see what it was like to be underwater." She sighed. "Well, don't do it again. It's not funny." He nodded, but she could tell he was already planning his next adventure. She loved her ducklings with all her heart, and that meant making sure they stayed out of trouble. At last, they reached the nest.